We are providing interpretation services for this meeting in Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Haitian Creole, as well as English and American Sign Language. Whether you are here or on Zoom, you will have access to the interpretation service provided today. If you are here in the room, you can access interpretation by using a receiver and headphone set available at the table on the other side of the room to my right, where our staff sighting team is located. Spanish is channel 1 on the receiver. Portuguese is channel 2. Chinese is channel 3. Vietnamese, channel 4. And Haitian Creole, channel 5. For those on Zoom, in just a moment, we will activate the interpretation, and you will see a globe icon at the bottom of the screen that says interpretation. Click that and then make your language selection. So we are now ready to do just that. Give me one moment. And we should now have simultaneous interpretation available. So we're good to go. Okay.
Again, welcome everyone. This is a hybrid meeting of the Energy Facilities Siting Board taking place at the offices of the Department of Public Utilities, 1 South Station, Boston, and on Zoom. This hybrid meeting format is intended to allow everyone to see and hear all speakers, whether here or Zoom. With me today are the members of the Siting Board, Chair Van Nostrom from the Department of Public Utilities, Commissioner Fraser from the Department of Public Utilities, Elizabeth Mahoney, Commissioner of the Department of Energy Resources, Bonnie Heipel, Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection. I think Doug is here. Doug Gutro, Director of Permanent Regulatory Office and designee for the Interim Secretary, Ashley Stoba of the Executive Office of Economic Development. And Joe Bonifilio, the public member, is online. Andy Green, Director of the Siting Board, is here with the board and will be serving as the Zoom meeting host. I'd like to welcome everyone to this board hearing. And it is EFSB 19-06A, D.P.U 19-142A, D.P.U 19-14-3A, and D.P.U 23-22, known as the Mid-Cape Reliability Project. Eversource seeks approval from the Energy Facility Siting Board to modify electric infrastructure located in Bourne, Sandwich, and Barnstable, Massachusetts. The project changes proposed would allow the previously approved Mid-Cape Reliability Project between Bourne and Barnstable to operate at 345 kV instead of 115 kV. The proposed project includes 3 key components: operating the existing line between Bourne and Barnstable at 345, expanding the Eversource West Barnstable substation for the higher voltage 345 kV operations, and constructing a new 345 kV switching station in Bourne. Eversource also has requested zoning relief for construction and operation of the expansion of the West Barnstable substation. The purpose of today's meeting is to listen to comments, deliberate, and vote on whether to approve with conditions, or reject the tentative decision issued by the Siting Board staff on July 11th. The Siting Board provided notice of today's meeting to the following entities: the service list for this proceeding, state legislative members from the project area, and community-based organizations in the project area. The notice was also posted on the Siting Board's website and the company's website. In addition, notice of this board meeting was provided under the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law. The notice and the tentative decision were provided in English and Portuguese. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on the Siting Board's YouTube channel. For our remote attendees, if you're having difficulty with Zoom, please call or text 857-200-0065 for assistance at any time. A stenographer is present today to transcribe everything said to make an official record of the meeting. Everyone should speak slowly and clearly and allow the prior speaker to finish speaking before you begin speaking. These procedures will help ensure an accurate transcript. The sequence of the board meeting today is as follows. The Siting Board presiding officer will make a presentation, followed by comments from Eversource and the parties in the proceeding. Next, we'll listen to comments from public officials, and finally, we will listen to public commenters. The board will then begin its deliberations on the tentative decision, consider possible amendments to the tentative decision, and finally, vote on the tentative decision. We are now ready to begin the substantive portion of this meeting. Ms. Sharkey, would you like to start us off?
Can everyone hear me? Good morning, Secretary Tepper and members of the Siting Board. My name is Donna Sharkey. I'm the presiding officer in this matter. I'm here to present the staff's tentative decision and proposed amendment sheet and to answer any questions you may have regarding this proceeding. To give you some history regarding the proposed project change tentative decision before you today, in 2019, Eversource proposed the construction of a 12.5-mile, 115 kV transmission line along an existing right-of-way to address reliability needs on Cape Cod. The Siting Board docketed that petition as EFSB 19-06, D.P.U. 19-142, and 19-143. During the course of the board's review, Eversource requested that the Siting Board approve a variation of the 115 kV project as a 345 kV capable line to facilitate the eventual interconnection of the New England Wind, or otherwise known as Park City Wind, offshore wind project. The 345 kV capable line would follow the same right-of-way as the project, but use slightly taller structures with some modifications on the placement of these structures within the existing right-of-way. The company asserted that as construction would follow the same route as the 115 kV line project initially proposed, the impacts of the 345 kV project would be comparable, and argued that the opportunity to build the line as a 345 kV capable project would minimize the potential inefficiencies associated with constructing a 115 kV facility, only to be replaced with the 345 kV facility to interconnect the offshore wind projects that were planned to be built. In March 2022, Park City Wind, a subsidiary of Avangrid, entered into an agreement with Eversource to compensate Eversource for all incremental costs to make the project a 345 kV capable line. This 2022 agreement has been replaced by an amended transmission support agreement approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in July 2024. The amended transmission support agreement defines the obligations of Eversource and Park City Wind to provide regional transmission interconnection support for the Park City Wind project, now called New England Wind 1, including Park City Wind's financial obligation to pay for the upgrade. On December 22nd, 2022, the board approved the project to be built as a 345 kV capable project, while requiring Eversource to return with a filing for board review to operate the line at 345 kV, with proposals for the additional facility upgrades necessary at the existing Bourne and West Barnstable stations. For the 345 kV transmission project to become fully operational as a regional transmission interconnection with the capacity to interconnect Park City Wind. The tentative decision before you today addresses the cost, reliability, and environmental impacts of the additional interconnection infrastructure necessary to operate the line at 345 kV to interconnect Park City Wind and the zoning exemptions requested by Eversource from the zoning ordinance of the town of Barnstable required to construct and operate the planned interconnection. The company filed 2 separate project change requests on February 28, 2023. One to the siting board indicating that operation of the new line at 345 kV is now warranted, and the other to the Department of Public Utilities requesting zoning exemptions for the company's proposed changes at the West Barnstable substation. The project change filing and the zoning petition were consolidated for review and adjudication by the siting board as one proceeding. The proposed project change includes operating and interconnecting the line between Bourne and Barnstable at 345 kV, expanding the West Barnstable substation for 345 kV operation, and constructing a new 345 kV switching station in Bourne. Eversource filed the project change because the siting board had approved the Park City Wind project, completion of the system impact study for Park City Wind by ISO New England was complete, and commercial agreements between Eversource and Park City Wind, including the amended and restated settlement transmission support agreement executed on May 10th, 2024, and approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on July 2024, had been completed. Under the TSA, Park City Wind will fund the entire cost of the project change. As a regional transmission owner, Eversource is obligated to provide transmission services upon request, subject to both FERC regulation and ISO New England oversight. We received 2 petitions to intervene in the original proceeding from Park City Wind and South Coast Wind. Both interveners expressed support for the original project as an important opportunity to promote interconnection to the regional grid for offshore wind projects located in the waters off Cape Cod. Both parties retain their status as interveners in the project change proceeding. In this project change proceeding, 2 Bourne residents appearing pro se were granted intervention in light of the proximity of their residences to the new Bourne station. In addition, the town of Barnstable petitioned for and was granted intervention in the project change proceeding. The town was an actor intervener in the proceeding. Both Eversource and the town filed comments on the tentative decision. To address Barnstable's concerns, in its petition to intervene and in its comments on the tentative decision, Barnstable raised concerns regarding potential project impacts on the town's groundwater resources, especially groundwater within the Cape Cod sole source aquifer on which Barnstable relies for drinking water. Barnstable also proposed conditions to limit visual impacts on the expansion of the West Barnstable substation, to require the adoption of emergency response plans for the substation, and to include containment measures for dielectric fluids and other hazardous materials to ensure the protection of the town's water resources. Substation spill prevention plans, containment for hazardous substances such as dielectric fluid, automated alarms, best management practice procedures for construction and operation, cleanup procedures, and other incidents at other Eversource-owned substation were all issues explored during discovery and evidentiary hearings. The company made the following commitments to address the town's water resources concerns. The company will file a stormwater pollution prevention plan for both stations, and the company will employ well-established safety and spill protocols. Regarding risk mitigation for the West Barnstable substation expansion, the company will construct a containment system for the proposed auto transformer, both above and below ground. The below-grade containment structure will include a portion of the walls projecting above grade to prevent surface water runoff from flowing into the containment system, and will include a high-level alarm that would alert the company to any high fluid levels in the system. The company will also construct a containment system for battery electrolytes and a battery monitoring system that, one, monitors the condition of each battery cell, and two, alerts the company to any emergency condition, allowing for the dispatch of personnel to remediate any spill of battery electrolytes. Finally, the West Barnstable substation site is significantly buffered from surface water bodies, floodplains, and will not disturb or alter the isolated shrub wetlands situated on the West Barnstable site. At hearing, staff requested an analysis to assess potential risks associated with leaks of hazardous materials at the West Barnstable substation. In response, Eversource provided an analysis by an environmental geotechnical consultant, which determined that in the event of a surface release of dielectric fluid, it would take well over a year and possibly up to 2 years for the dielectric fluid to reach groundwater, even if the entire contents of the transformer were released into the soil. In addition, at hearings, Eversource described its spill response plan, which dispatches a separate team of field responders with specific expertise on responding to spills to respond to the event within 2 hours of discovery, assess the situation, and then implement appropriate cleanup measures. Staff considered the record evidence, including the testimony regarding monitoring protocols, including electronic alarm, frequency of personnel inspections of substation operations, the containment system designs, and the geotechnical analysis. To address these potential risks, staff included a condition in the tentative decision to further bolster the company's response to spills by requiring that Eversource develop facility-specific emergency response plans for both the Bourne and West Barnstable substation that will address fire safety, hazardous materials, and emergency response planning and preparedness. The emergency response plans shall be developed in consultation with local public safety officials and require close coordination between the company and first responders to ensure that first responders are fully informed about emergency events and understand how to address emergency events without assuming unnecessary personal risk. The emergency response plan shall include, at a minimum, 1, equipment types and layouts, safety data sheets for materials used or stored on site, a firefighting plan with suggested response procedures for various emergency conditions, and for the emergency response tasks that will be undertaken and completed by the facility operator. The plan shall detail response expectations, including before or after the facility operator is present at the emergency site. Additionally, the plan shall include a communications plan for nearby residents who may be impacted by an emergency event, and the names and telephone numbers of local, state, and federal agencies or officials to be contacted in the event of an emergency. The condition also directs the company to submit these emergency response plans for review to the siting board 90 days prior to construction commencement. I would note that Eversource has requested that deadline be changed to 90 days prior to station operation. The company argues that is a reasonable construct because it would enable the company and the relevant public officials more time to consult with a better mutual understanding of the facilities as actually built closer in time to when the facility is ready to go into service. And also that requirement is consistent with decisions regarding emergency response plans for substations made in our previous decisions related to the Greater Cambridge Energy Program and the Mystic East Eagle Chelsea Reliability Project change decisions. Staff finds this proposed change acceptable and has included that change in the amendment sheet. In addition, staff have required the company to collaborate with public safety to update the ERP as necessary. The company's noise analysis raised potential pure tone issues related to the existing operation at or in the vicinity of the West Barnstable substation, unrelated to potential substation modifications. To address this issue, the tentative decision requires Eversource to confirm that the adjacent Oak Street substation in West Barnstable is compliant with Mass DEP's noise policy, including ensuring no emission of pure tones, and to propose any additional necessary sound mitigation. Condition L requires Eversource to submit a pure tone analysis to the board after construction is completed. The tentative decision also directs Eversource to offer visual mitigation to property owners within 300 feet of project change construction activity at each of the stations. Eversource has requested in its comments that Condition L be modified to require the pure tone analysis to be submitted 90 days after project change completion to develop a more complete analysis of and plan to address any pure tone issues that may be identified. Staff finds this change acceptable and has included that change in the amendment sheet. During the proceeding, Eversource filed a supplemental information response, which included a change in construction plans at both the Bourne Station and the West Barnstable substation. The change would add duct banks at each station, 3 in Bourne and 4 at West Barnstable. The duct banks could be used for installing underground cables in the future, but no cables would be installed. The additional duct banks would be plugged at the end and stubbed for future use, hence the term stub outs. The stub outs go beyond the fence line of the stations at a distance of approximately 35 feet. The company described the impacts of the stub outs as relatively minor and limited to construction impacts. Eversource stated the proposed locations were almost entirely within the fence line of the proposed substation expansion area, where grading, tree removal, duct bank installation, and retaining wall construction are proposed. The company stated the proposed duct bank installations would not require any additional tree removal or any additional work within the 100-foot buffer zones of wetlands. Following construction of the underground duct bank stub outs, the disturbed areas would be substantially restored to their pre-existing conditions and stabilized with gravel. To address the timing of the addition of these duct banks, Eversource stated that construction efficiency drove the request for permission to construct these additional duct banks. The company stated one benefit of the stub-out construction would be to avoid outages that could impact Park City Wind to install these future connections to the station. The company states that Park City Wind agreed to pay the company for the cost of these stub-outs, estimated at $2.9 million as part of the amended transmission support agreement. In its brief and in its comments on the tentative decision, Barnstable asserted that any approval of the project change should be limited to the facilities initially proposed in the project change petitions without the additions of the stub-outs intended to connect other projects that have neither been permitted nor reviewed by the siting board and which have not completed MEPA review. In its comments on the tentative decision, the town reiterates these concerns, identifying the stub-outs as a location where Commonwealth Wind's interconnection would be made and where another large-scale substation would be placed outside of the MEPA review in which it should properly be considered. We disagree. In order to install the interconnection infrastructure required to interconnect other facilities requesting transmission services, Eversource and/or the entity planning to construct those facilities would need to file a petition with the board for approval of those facilities. The siting board notes the relatively minor impacts of constructing the stub-outs at this time. In addition, the town's segmentation arguments rely on the stub-outs being added for the benefit of Commonwealth Wind. To the extent there are concerns related to the impacts of Commonwealth Wind and any potential interconnections required to connect that project to the regional transmission grid. Those changes would be addressed in a MEPA review and by a review by the siting board, and would encompass any changes to that project, including its interconnection facilities. As stated before, the cost of the project change will be borne by Park City Wind, consistent with the terms of the amended transmission support agreement, which includes a guarantee and a letter of credit to support its financial commitment. Staff included a draft condition that if the company enters into any additional agreements or revised agreements related to service to be provided by Eversource through the interconnection facilities approved in this decision, Eversource must provide the board and the parties to this docket with a filing related to those contractual arrangements and the impact, if any, on the terms of the amended TSA presented in this proceeding and the collection of costs associated with the 345 kV transmission facilities. Parties to this proceeding would receive copies of that filing and would have the opportunity to address any change in those proposed services and contracts. Condition P states that if the company enters into any additional agreements or revised agreements related to service to be provided by Eversource through the interconnection facilities approved in this decision, the siting board directs Eversource to provide to the siting board and the parties in this docket a filing related to those contractual arrangements and the impact, if any, on the terms of the amended TSA presented in this proceeding and the collection of costs associated with the 345 kV transmission facilities. In comments, Eversource has sought to limit the requirement to include only such additional or revised agreements that must be filed with the FERC 30 days after the filing is made at the FERC to provide Eversource sufficient time to evaluate the need for and prepare any required filing. I would note that the company is able to request through normal confidential motions sufficient protection to the confidential and highly sensitive commercial information that might be contained in the new agreement. I would also notice that Eversource filed the agreement on a redacted basis shortly before hearings and then filed a copy of the complete FERC filing with the supporting explanation related to the TSA at that time on the public record and further supplemented with the FERC order once issued. We would expect A similar procedure could be followed in the event of any revisions to the current TSA.
Presiding officer, can I request 20 seconds? The interpretation service asked for a 20-second
Sure.
reprieve to do a change.
Sure.
Thank you. Jose, when you're done, can you let us know?
Yes, everyone is swapped in. Thank you so much. If you can just confirm that you can hear me.
It's done. Thank you.
Thank you. In conclusion, in addition to the cost and reliability aspects of the project change that I mentioned earlier, the tentative decision addresses the environmental impacts associated with the project change, including land use, historic resources, water and wetlands, noise, visual impacts, air quality, hazardous waste and safety, traffic, and magnetic fields. The tentative decision of the project change, in addition to other conditions intended to further mitigate some of these impacts. In comments by the town, Barnstable reiterates its concern regarding the cumulative impacts of multiple substations in the town and asserts that the tentative decision seems to ignore the town's concerns. Staff disagrees. We have not dismissed the town's concern regarding protection of its water resources. What we have done in this proceeding is to review the environmental impacts of the specific design of this substation proposed by Eversource, the measures designed to minimize and mitigate any potential leaks from hazardous substances. In addition, the tentative decision requires a specific plan to be developed by the town and Eversource to address any emergencies or hazards at the West Barnstable substation, with similar requirements to be addressed at the Bourne station. Staff do not recommend including a cumulative review that the town requests in this proceeding, as it is outside the scope of the proceeding, would require the establishment of a new proceeding to develop a full record for those broader concerns. Should the board commence review of a proposal for another substation in Barnstable, the town may review its request at that time, and the board can address the request in the context of the future proceeding. Finally, the tentative decision recommends the siting board grant the requested individual and comprehensive zoning exemptions from the Barnstable zoning ordinance to complete modifications to the West Barnstable substation. Sure. Sorry. Those exemptions are required for the project, and the proposed use of the land or structures is reasonably necessary for the convenience or welfare of the public, and we recommend that the board grant those exemptions. The tentative decision concludes that the Mid-Cape Reliability Project change, as proposed, will provide a reliable energy supply with a minimum impact on the environment at the lowest possible cost, is necessary, serves the public convenience, and is consistent with the public interest. You should have received a copy of the amendment sheet developed by staff, which includes clarifications and minor modifications of the tentative decision, but does not include changes to the determinations presented in the tentative decision. Minor typographical edits were not included on the amendment sheet. I would be happy to answer any questions now or later in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharkey. Appreciate that. Really helpful. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Hearing Officer Sharkey? I just have a couple. I had a question about the TSA, and you had mentioned in your remarks that the TSA provides recovery of the incremental cost. Are there other costs associated with this particular project?
So the way the amended TSA was structured is somewhat different maybe than older transmission support agreements have been structured in the past. Essentially, the company had asked for or had arranged to create a regulatory asset, which is for the entire cost of the project. Park City Wind is responsible under the TSA arrangements to pay for those. However, essentially, there is a monthly carrying charge associated with the expenses that Eversource is incurring related to the projects. And payment of those carrying charges allows work to continue, perhaps on a more reduced cost basis in the immediate future to the project. And this is just for the project change, not for the project that was already built, the reliability project.
Just for this part of it. And do we, and obviously I'm sure that there's some confidential information associated with the TSA, so just tell me what you can.
Well, it's actually been filed at FERC, and so it's now a public document. The company had originally requested confidential treatment, and it was filed on that basis. But once it was filed as a public filing on FERC, the amended TSA became a public document.
It wasn't redacted at FERC.
That's right.
Okay. So what is the status of that particular document right now?
Well, it was approved July 2024. We have not been updated on any changes to date, if there are any. The company could probably address those.
Yeah, I can ask.
The amended TSA does include both a guarantee and a letter of credit provided by Park City Wind to secure its financial obligation to the company under the amended TSA.
And is it in the record right now when construction is expected to commence?
I believe the expectation was that, and I'm sure Mr.
I think I
Rosenzweig
read in
would-
the order that it was in 2025 that construction was supposed to commence.
That was the anticipated date of commencement of construction. And I believe the anticipated date of completion was 2027.
Mhm.
However, there is a provision within the TSA which allows Park City Wind, Eversource, and ISO New England to negotiate any changes to any deadline or any terms of the amended TSA. So that would provide the parties with a significant level of flexibility to address changes for either, I would expect, Eversource and Park City Wind as needed.
Thank you. That answers my question. On the stub outs, was there a discussion in the record regarding what it would mean to do the sub-outs as a separate project further down the road, like, let's say, in connection with another project, and not do it here?
I would say that the company, basically stated they wanted to do it now primarily because it was convenient. And
Because they're already doing construction, they're already got everybody out there.
they're already, and the duct banks would be empty, so that certainly further activities would need to take place before cables could be installed or anything else. But they extend, say, 35 feet from the substation fences, which would mean in the future, if they were to use those stub outs for an interconnection, they wouldn't have to, for example, remove the station fence to kind of finalize constructions.
All right, I'll ask the rest of my questions to the parties. Thank you. And let me just take a moment to thank the siding board staff for the work on this proceeding. It's been a long proceeding, and you all have really stuck with it and done an excellent job on the tentative decision. These cases are not easy, and I think you've done a really good job distilling all the complicated information and presenting reasonable and helpful conditions. So thank you. Okay. So before we begin comments with the parties, I'm wondering if I could have appearance of counsel.
Yes, appearing on behalf of Eversource Energy from law firms Keegan Worland LLP, David Rosenzweig, and Mike Tate.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. Appearing on behalf of Eversource Energy from the law firm of Keegan Worland LLP, David Rosenzweig, and Michael Kaler.
Good morning, Adam Kahn and Aaron Lang, appearing for intervener Park City Wind.
And do we have an attorney for the town online?
Morning, Tom LaRosa from the intervening first assistant town attorney for the town of Barnstable intervener. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll start with the. I will note that we did get some comments on the tentative decision, both from Eversource and the town of Barnstable. The siding board members do have those comments in front of us right now, and they've also been posted on the siding board's electronic file room online. So first, we're going to turn to Eversource for its comments on the tentative decision.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, siding board members and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Rosenzweig, and I'm representing Eversource Energy. At the outset, we want to thank the staff for their hard work throughout the process. The staff's tentative decision is a thorough and well-reasoned evaluation of the evidence based on siding board standards and precedent for project change proceedings. We greatly appreciate the staff's efforts. I will be very brief today. Eversource strongly supports the tentative decision in its recommended approval of the project changes that are being incorporated from the underlying siding board approval of the original Mid-Cape Reliability Project. As we stated in our written comments, based on the comprehensive record that has been developed, the tentative decision fully addresses each aspect of the siding board's statutory mandate with factual findings that are appropriate and well supported. We also support the staff's proposed amendments to the tentative decision, including the company's proposed revisions to conditions O and L. I want to briefly address two areas of concern that were raised by the town of Barnstable in its written comments. First, with respect to the company's proposed stub outs at West Barnstable, The tentative decisions, analysis, and findings on pages 20 through 22 are complete and grounded in substantial evidence. Simply put, the stub outs are a de minimis scope of work that Park City Wind will be paying for directly, and there is essentially no impact or disruption to the community by constructing the stub outs on the project site. To answer a question from the chair, if the stub outs were not constructed now, there would be a second round of construction that would involve additional disruption, mobilization of construction resources, and it would also likely require an outage of Park City Wind, which would come at substantial cost to Park City Wind. So it's quite reasonable in that sense for Park City Wind to show the interest in ensuring that these stub outs were constructed now and paying for those costs directly. We believe that allowing the construction of the stub outs is a sensible and pragmatic way of minimizing future impacts and costs at the present time. Second, contrary to the town's request, there is no statutory requirement for the siting board to conduct a cumulative impact analysis to groundwater related to the company's containment system at West Barnstable for this project. Nonetheless, as part of its extensive analysis on this issue, and Presiding Officer Sharkey went into this in great detail and very aptly. If the board referred to pages 42 to 44 of the tentative decision, the decision finds that the company has appropriately designed its robust containment system consistent with precedent. And then I quote, even when viewed cumulatively, end quote, the risks to groundwater are minimal. With that, I will close, and I'm available to any further questions that the board may have. The company respectfully requests that the board adopt the tentative decision with the staff's proposed amendments as its final decision in this proceeding. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Rosenzweig?
Good morning, Bonnie Heipel, Mass DP. You indicated that there is essentially no impact, de minimis impact associated with constructing the stub outs now. Trying to square that with the company's claim, as I understand it in the proceeding, that constructing the stub outs now would minimize future impacts. So is that limited to land disturbance, or are there other environmental impacts that would be minimized if the stub outs can be constructed now?
I think the distinction there is that if it were done through a second construction cycle, there would be more excavation, new excavation, tearing up perhaps foundations and fence work, and it would involve more impacts than if it were done and coordinated with the construction work that needs to be undertaken for the construction of the upgrades to serve Park City Wind at West Barnstable. So if you were to compare them and put them in two columns, you would see more impacts and more cost, but more impacts if the stub outs were constructed later, because it would involve undoing some work, redoing it in a second round of disruption.
Okay, so fair to say those center around the land disturbance aspects?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Attorney Rosenzweig. Would future projects have an easier time getting approved by the board if we approve the stub outs here?
I think under appropriate circumstances, that type of sensible determination would be good for all projects, not just Eversource projects, but third-party interconnection projects, by ensuring that work that can be undertaken efficiently and coordinated, that may facilitate future interconnections or future reliability upgrades, can both minimize impacts and costs without really, shall I say, pre-approving the underlying project itself, which would have to go through a more fulsome siting board review for jurisdictional facilities.
Thank you for that.
Madam Chair, is it appropriate to ask questions about the company's proposal on condition P at this time, or do I need to wait? Okay, great. Can you explain why the company wants to limit condition P to this second condition, mini condition, sub-condition, whatever you want to call it, that projects are the only projects that you would notify the board about are those that are filed with FERC?
I'm not sure that was our intent, but if that might be the reading, I think our intent here was there may be a whole series of agreements and arrangements that the company may undertake with Park City Wind or perhaps even a third party down the road that may have some relation to this. And at least as it relates to Park City Wind, we think that all the information that the siting board needs, consistent with what was filed in the original proceeding, in the project change proceeding, is the transmission support agreement, which will have all the information regarding the obligations of each party, the construction milestones, the rate-making treatment to be accorded by FERC. And we were trying also to avoid the disclosure at any point in time of confidential or proprietary information, which is particularly important to Park City Wind. They have a very strong commercial interest in maintaining confidentiality regarding their schedule and their cost. And until that information becomes public, which does not occur until after there's a siting board, a FERC filing, we wanted to structure the condition in that manner. I hear where the staff is coming from. We can live with the condition as they've chosen to maintain it, but we were just trying to carve it back a little bit to be more protective of both unnecessary filing information that we don't think would contribute to the siting board's review, as well as disclosure, potential disclosure of confidential information.
You noted that it could be filings with Park City Wind, but also other third parties. Are you aware of what other third parties could be utilizing these stub outs in the future?
That's difficult to say. As noted during the record in the siting board's project change proceeding, there's about 2,600 megawatts in the ISO queue seeking to interconnect at West Barnstable in this area. It's a very advantageous area for connections to from offshore wind because of the strong transmission system that can deliver the power not only to the Cape, but north to load centers in the greater Boston area. There are various projects that are in that interconnection queue, the names of which are confidential, and I don't think I'm both aware but able to disclose those names, but those will all play out in the marketplace over time. So it could be other third parties in addition or in place of Park City Wind, depending on what happens to its project, that might be users of these facilities going forward.
It's a little in the weeds, but would those become open access infrastructure so that anybody could hook up to it? Or would there have to be a separate agreement with Eversource to use that agreement, those particular infrastructure?
Maybe a little bit of both. First, those stub outs actually could be an Eversource reliability project in the future that's independent of any third-party interconnection. But to the extent that those stub outs would be used for a third-party interconnection, the company's open access tariff requires it to facilitate those types of requests on a non-discriminatory manner, essentially on a first-come, first-served basis. That's studied by ISO New England. So it could be any number of different users of those facilities going forward. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you answered my question. Can you talk to us a little bit about the ratepayer protections that you have either negotiated or have in mind associated with potential delays or when the project is going to start spending money, that kind of concern?
Yeah. I would say that there are active discussions going on currently between Eversource and Park City Wind with respect to updating project milestones. And the parties, I think I can say, are optimistic that they're going to be able to reach an amended schedule that would be completed within the next 6 months, or certainly to facilitate the possibility of starting construction in 2026. So we're trying to do that as expeditiously as possible. From the Eversource perspective, there would be a new transmission support agreement or a further amendment to the existing agreements that are in place that would continue, at least as it relates to Park City Wind, contemplate that they would pay for all associated costs that are for the facilities that are at issue in this proceeding. That ensures that our retail customers are not paying for those facilities that are directly dedicated and have been constructed to serve Park City Wind.
So okay, I understand. I guess I am wondering about potential stranded cost with respect to spending money constructing, and then perhaps not being able to use that particular.
I don't anticipate how stranded costs could occur in this circumstance because Eversource will be constructing only pursuant to a notice to proceed that's delivered by Park City Wind to Eversource to initiate the
That's the
construction.
question I was asking. Yeah.
And absent that, Eversource would not be incurring costs, certainly not on behalf of its customers that would be borne on the retail side. So I think the nature of the commercial agreements will protect against that type of outcome.
That's the question I was asking. Thank you. But it sounds like to me that maybe Eversource, there's some discussion about Eversource's costs associated during this period of time with respect to carrying charges.
Yes, and the information in the record is that the estimate for the capital cost of the upgrades to serve this facility, Park City Wind, was $197 million. That's the number in the record. There may be updated estimates once the new milestone schedule is agreed upon. The way that the agreements have occurred between Park City Wind is that, and it was well stated by Presiding Officer Sharkey, most of the costs will be incurred through essentially a revenue requirement type arrangement. Some of it is directly assigned and not subject to a revenue requirement arrangement. The revenue requirement would provide the company financial support directly from Park City Wind for its operation and maintenance expense, for its depreciation, but would be funding the capital costs over time with a carrying charge for those capital costs.
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to switch gears a little bit. Can you talk about how the wires will be strung, and will that information be included in the outreach plan?
With respect to the transmission lines themselves, they are already constructed. And there has been broad outreach both before, during the process of constructing those lines. They're 345 capable lines on 345 kV structures. They are presently operating at 115 kV. Those facilities are in service as of the last year or so. Approval of this project and proceeding with this project would switch the voltage level of those lines to 345 kVs going forward, which would not be a noticeable difference to customers, to abutters, and involve really no incremental work except for some very small amount of tree trimming that would be within the right of way to accommodate the operation of the lines at 345 kV.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Joe, you good? He doesn't have his hand up, so okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we're going to hear from the town of Barnstable.
Good morning, Tom LaRosa from the town of Barnstable. First, the town does want to thank the presiding officer for conducting a complex proceeding. We've made it look relatively effortless, although I'm sure it was difficult. The town does not have any additional comments other than we have no issue with the proposed change to condition O to tie that to station operation for the emergency response plan versus the commencement of construction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we hear from, does Park City Wind want to provide any comments? Okay. Okay, so is South Coast Wind represented here today?
Mr. Runge indicated he was not planning on attending or filing any comments, but he appreciates the opportunity.
Is it your understanding, are there any other parties that are wishing to speak today?
I'm not sure if Mrs. Townsend, who
Are
had
there-
asked for information on the Zoom meeting that was contained in the notice, but I'm not sure if she's online or not.
Ms. Townsend, if you're online and you'd like to speak, can you put up your hand? Okay. All right. So are there any comments by the public or any officials who would like to comment on the tentative decision this morning? If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand. Okay. No state officials available who would like to speak? Or federal officials or any officials? Okay. I'm giving you the last chance. All right, then we will begin deliberations. So I think we need to have a motion to adopt the tentative decision. Can somebody please make that motion?
I move to adopt the tentative decision.
There's second.
Second.
Thank you. So I'm going to leave that on the floor and we will deliberate on the tentative decision. And let's first consider the amendments. Does anybody have any comments on the amendments?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I will confess that I took a bit of a pause on changing from construction commencement with station operations, but hearing from the town that they do not oppose, and given the hearing officer's comments on that this the underlying decision by the staff to recommend this, that it keeps it consistent with past precedent. I have no objection to that.
Anybody else? Does anybody want to discuss Eversource's concern with condition P? It's a lot of paper.
I don't know that I'm struggling to accept this one, just because although I appreciate the explanation from the company today, I think more information is better in this situation, and at least the way it just seems very limiting to limit it whenever it's a document that is to be filed at FERC. I may be able to be convinced otherwise, but I just think in this circumstance, given the heightened attention that is put to this project that it would be good to know when revised agreements are filed.
Yeah, I had the same view. I mean, if it's not relevant, it turns out not to be relevant, somebody doesn't want to look at it, they'll just file it in a way, and it's no harm, no foul. And if something is confidential, then you can move to have it get confidential treatment in the normal course of business. I think, the lawyers are experienced lawyers here who could figure out what's relevant to this case and what isn't. Commissioner Mahoney, can you turn to page 21 of the order? I think there might be maybe I can just read this sentence to you. I think it just might be backwards, but maybe I'm wrong. So the sentence says, at present, Park City Wind is engaged in PPA negotiations with DOER, on behalf of the Massachusetts Electric Distribution Companies, with a future review of the PPAs by the department anticipated. It's not DOER that's in negotiation, correct?
That's correct. The Park City Wind is in negotiations with the Massachusetts Electric Distribution Companies.
So if we could make that change on page 21. Any questions about the order itself or any more of the conditions? I guess I would just say I appreciate the addressing of many of the town's concerns in these conditions. Particularly, I think it's helpful to have the information about the emergency safety plans that are specific to this particular project. I think that is a helpful addition. Likewise, appreciate the outreach plan. I think that will help with communications with the town and make sure that everybody is kept informed where the project is and what's happening, et cetera, particularly during construction. All right. Anybody else? So can we have a motion to adopt the proposed amendment changes by the staff that is dated July 21, 2025 on the sheet that was provided to us this morning?
Can I clarify that motion? Do we also have to move to make the amendment that you just offered regarding the electric distribution companies?
Can't just do that.
I'll move it all.
All right.
I move that we accept the amendments offered by the staff on July 21st and the amendment just offered here today with respect to language on page 21, striking reference to DOER.
Seconded.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on that motion.
Chair Van Nostrand?
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier?
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
Commissioner Heipel?
Aye.
Mr. Goutreau?
Aye.
Mr. Bonfilio?
Aye.
And Chair Tepper.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, let's now have a motion on the underlying motion to approve the tentative decision as amended today.
So moved.
And we have a vote on that, please.
Chair Van Nostrand?
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier?
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
Commissioner Heipel?
Aye.
Mr. Goutreau?
Aye.
Mr. Bonfilio?
Aye.
Chair Tepper.
Yes.
Motion carries. Decision is approved.
Is there any more business for the board this morning? Oh, yeah. We did say, sorry, I forgot. Yesterday, we did say that if anybody wanted to provide more comments on yesterday's presentations, that we would provide time to do that today, and this would be the time. So if anybody would like to do that, and remember, we also are accepting written comments, which we're happy to All of them will be read and reviewed. But if somebody would like to make direct comments to the board this morning, we would be happy to hear them. If you want to do that, if you could raise your hand.
I do not see any hands raised.
Right, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Chair Van Nostrand,
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier, Commissioner Mahoney,
Aye.
Commissioner Heipel,
Aye.
Mr. Gutro, Mr. Bonfilio,
Aye.
Chair Tuck.
Yes. All right, then let's adjourn. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.